Hey, what's happening, y'all? So the kid is taking a nap. Hopefully I can get this done real quick. We can kind of talk a little bit about what's going on. Yeah, I did get at least one comment over the last few weeks on a lack of video publication that was happening on the channel. So I know at least one person noticed, and I figured I should at least kind of put something out there to say what's going on and what the future of the channel is, that sort of thing. Basically, this month I finally got caught up on my pre produced content, and then we had a series of events. It's all kind of a blur, but the family that helps watch Patrick so that I can get some work done, they got sick, and you know, bless their hearts, they still tried to come out and help where they could, but eventually I'd be like, guys, go home, get to feeling better. Like that's more important. So that was a week of no work. The following week after that, when we were planning on getting back on schedule, well, then the freeze came and all the streets were iced over. So guess what? No babysitting there. And those of you who don't live in Texas, that might sound really strange. Especially, I've got some friends up in Colorado and stuff, and some of them are originally from Texas. So we kind of talked a little bit about it, and it's kind of interesting that in Texas, we don't have the infrastructure to handle cold weather. It's also a little bit different where snow isn't really the issue. If we get snow, unless it's a lot of snow, we're usually relatively okay. The problem we run into here is that it rains and then the ground gets soaked and then freezes overnight, and then the roads are just like they've got a solid half an inch to an inch of ice over the top of them the next day. And so it's not necessarily the snow or the cold weather, that type of thing is the problem. It's the roads literally turning into an ice rink, which is very dangerous to drive on. And we don't have a huge infrastructure throughout Texas of road clearers, and we've got some salting trucks, but nowhere near what's needed to actually cover everything that someone might need to get around any given town. So the infrastructure's not there. It only happens once or twice a year, so even then we don't really know how to drive in it. It's just not a skill that we're forced to practice regularly. So you've got that. You've got lack of infrastructure. You've got lack of being able to drive on that type of surface, and you've got our vehicles usually are built with, we don't put snow tires or anything like that to try and deal with it. And you've got the fact that the roads become a freaking ice rink. So when the cold weather hits, all that kind of combines, and it can kind of shut the state down almost. I missed out on a couple job interviews, well, a job interview, and the LRODs weren't able to make it out, and it was just a mess. Well, then following that, this past week, we caught the flu. So Monday before last, I had a mild fever, and then that Wednesday, my wife had trouble breathing. So not only did I exhaust my supply of pre-produced content, but then I had 3 weeks of basically not being able to get anything done. And so that's the biggest part of why I didn't put out a new video. Now, that being said, that did prompt me to start thinking about the reality of my situation. And sorry if you hear noise, it's let's see, which elbow don't you move? You can see her down there. The super mutt's taking a nap back there. But it prompted me to start thinking about reality versus expectation. And I wanted to put out a statement here kind of tying into that, because it's important. And this is relevant for you if you're an entrepreneur or really anything. I mean, I feel like this is a subject that's kind of relevant to everyone. And I started learning about this when I was working the front desk at the gym back in Odessa, Midland. So eventually I got moved up to front desk lead. And something I always coached the front desk staff about was to set people's expectations accurately upon entry. Because something I noticed is there were some of my peers who we got a commission off of membership sales. And so they were awesome salespeople. And they could sell, and they had really good paychecks because they could sell those memberships. But they had a lot of cancellations because they sold an image that was above and beyond what could realistically be expected. When someone's expectations aren't met, that's when they become angry. Which, of course, there's always people that just hear what they want to hear and end up getting angry anyway. But the point of that story is to say that by and large, the more accurately you can set someone's expectations, the happier they will be with the end product because they're expecting what you're delivering. I think that's important to do as an entrepreneur. If you're talking with clients, a lot of times we can, and this causes me to lose clients if I'm being completely honest, or to not get clients, because someone else is going to try and sell the world. They're going to say that they can do anything and everything, and not talk with the potential client about any of the complexities, not help them to understand what it is they're actually asking, not go into a detailed conversation. They're just going to try and get the sale, try and get the client. I don't do that. I believe in accurately setting expectations. So I am here to kind of set some expectations regarding this channel. It is going to change. And there's a story to that. You know, when I was at the school district and not really happy with the way things were going. But I was sacrificing a lot. I was working at a job I wasn't really that happy doing, and who the political nature of it was just really bringing me down. But the money became decent. It started out really bad, but I was able to fight to get up to a decent pay. And that enabled us to pay off almost all of our debt, no car payments, no student loans, get rid of most of the medical debt. And it enabled my wife to do some strategic maneuvering, get herself in some different positions, work with some people that were able to really increase her skills, and then end up at a job where she was making decent money and could conceivably, even if her paycheck wasn't enough to like get us super far ahead in life, it was enough to cover our necessities and make sure that the bills got paid. And it was at that point, once we reached that point where it's like, okay, our debt is all but gone. You're making enough to pay our bills. If I'm going to try and make Audio Mutt a commercial entity, now's the time. My wife has wanted to be a mom for years. While I was sacrificing working in a job that I didn't like to get us ahead financially, she was sacrificing and putting her desires for motherhood on hold in order to accomplish the same thing. And so when I left the school district, the understanding was I was still kind of hesitant about the whole parenthood thing. Wasn't necessarily something I actively wanted to do, but I knew it was part of my relationship with my wife. And we agreed to not try, if you catch my drift. I was thinking I was going to have plenty of time. And so I was taking my time producing content that was going to be in the backlog. I was thinking I'll take like a year to just build a library of content, that then after that year, I can spend the next year or two just having that all scheduled and running on autopilot, and spend that time like working on my next album and going and hustling and getting clients and really turning Audio Mutt, excuse me, still getting over this crud, into a commercial entity while the content was just going automatically to bring in viewers and subscribers and maybe make some merch sales and all that stuff. Well, not exactly what happened. My expectations were subverted, and within 3 or 4 months after me leaving the school district, we found out Laura was pregnant. And that kind of lit a fire in me of like, okay, I've got to make this happen now. So I'm going to spend a few more months getting some of that content together and then just started publishing it. And so from there, in order to keep the machine going, I kind of let myself get obsessed with YouTube and constantly generating content. And YouTube became more of my full-time job during the pregnancy than actually trying to get clients. And keep in mind, this is all happening like during the pandemic, right? Or at the tail end of the pandemic. So how do you go out and get clients, and how do you bring them into your home studio? And that was a whole dynamic that I should have been more prepared for, but I wasn't. So YouTube, in lieu of being able and feeling confident in doing that, that all got kind of complicated, and everything kind of shifted from music production and audio production and the things I was passionate about to content creation, which is enjoyable, but it's not what I set out to do. And then the boy came. I don't know. I've heard people say that, babies make everything better. And I've heard people talk about, how having a kid saved their marriage and all this sort of stuff. And if that's the case for you, good on you. That has not been my experience. Patrick's a good kid. But babies complicate things. And it is not his fault at all. And I'm got to be careful what I say in here and put out on the internet, because he will see these things later, and I don't want him to internalize any sort of fault within himself, because that's not accurate. Now that he's here, bringing in clients into the studio is not happening. For one, especially with strangers, do I trust a stranger in the house with my kid? But then it comes to actually doing the work. And here, I'll show you this little thing real quick. So this is my kind of task list. And you can see I've still got a lot of ideas and things that I want to do. But I have added a column for baby roll. And if you're familiar with D&D, that's kind of where I pulled that from. You either have your standard D20 roll, you roll with advantage, meaning you roll 2 die and take the higher number, or you roll with disadvantage, meaning you roll 2 20-sided die and take the lower number. And I've learned that there are different activities that when it comes to working in the house with the kid, I'm either rolling at disadvantage, advantage, or standard. And so like anything producing music, being loud, pumping music out of the studio monitors, anything like that, if he's napping, I'm rolling at disadvantage to keep him asleep and actually be able to work. If it's something like I'm doing now where I'm in a separate room, I've got a thing under the door to kind of block some of that audio transmission, and I'm speaking in a relatively normal but still quieter voice. That's kind of a standard role. And things like making my task list or using Guitar Pro to write out sheet music, things like that that are quiet and don't require any noise at all, rolling with advantage to keep him asleep and be able to keep working. But then we come to trying to bring a client into the studio and make something happen. And how can I do that when I'm saying, okay, give me 2 hours and then I can get the baby to sleep, and then if we're really quiet, maybe we can track a DI'd guitar. It doesn't work. So Audio Mutt Studios is kind of, unfortunately, closed for in-house business right now. And We also have to face the scheduling conflicts. Like there's a conference, a music conference going on in Fort Worth at the Stockyards, along with the festival, first week of March. And I would love to go. That would be great way to make professional connections, to learn some really cool things. The conference days are Thursday and Friday. My wife's going to be in the office Thursday, and she's going to be working from home Friday. So without securing babysitting, there's no way. There's just no way for me to abandon my kid and go and do these things. And that has necessitated that Audio Mutt is shifting. I'm having to pivot, and this is going to be more of a personal project studio than a commercial studio. Still doing work. I've got a VO project with one of the neighbors and things that I can do when the kid's asleep. If there's a sound design project or something like that where I can put in headphones, come in here and get some work done during the, 1 to 3 hours that he's taking a nap twice a day. Things like that. I'm shooting for doing that. But as far as regularly bringing in clients, doing outside work, or being able to step away and go to a location, all that's having to be put on hold, at least for a while the kid's a baby. And it's no fault of his own. This is the reality of being a parent in our situation. And being first-time parents, I knew it was going to be hard. I knew that it was going to be a jigsaw puzzle. I knew that I didn't exactly know what I didn't know. And I knew that there were going to have to be some pivots. It is the nature of the beast, and my first priority has to be making sure that little boy is taken care of. That is my number one job. So as far as content for the channel, that is something that I can do periodically when I have babysitters, because that's the other side of things. Like, daycare is great when you can afford it, and it's really expensive. Everything's getting more expensive right now. Daycare is no exception, and it was already expensive to begin with. Places I've looked at, you're looking at a minimum of $800 a month. So that is necessitating possibly a return to day job for me, which is also going to affect the time I have to create content. And I have to prioritize. So what is more important for me to create? If I have a limited amount of time to create, what's more important, my music or YouTube content, or my book, or all the different things that I'm working on creating? I have to make decisions about what's going to be the priority. And then I either have to get a day job that can afford childcare, or I have to find enough freelance work to be able to afford childcare. But it's hard to do that when I have to, it's the weird catch-22 circle thing where I have to have the jobs to have the money to put the kid in childcare to do the jobs. There's a puzzle to be put together here as far as how to do all the things, and it's unfortunately usually the time that I have with Patrick at a babysitter's are spent catching up on other things. I have to catch up on housework, because everything's a dice roll. And if he's awake, he requires my attention. If he's asleep, he requires my silence. And so there's a lot of things like laundry and dishes and floors and stuff that doesn't get done. And my wife has severe asthma, and I'm the one who can do those things. If I throw a lot of dust into the air when she's around, or start mopping and cleaning and get strong chemical smells in the air, any of that stuff can stop her breathing. And keeping my wife alive is a big priority for me. Content generation wise, what that's going to mean is generating content is something that I still want to do. I have experiments I want to do. I've got some really cool ideas. One idea I have is we picked up one of the 2021 Epiphone Prophecy Les Pauls when they went on sale. And that's got the like specially designed Fishman Fluence pickups in them. That's supposed to have a classic vintage tone, so like an Alnico pickup, a modern ceramic, modern active tone, and a single coil tone. Well, I happen to have an ESP LTD with EMGs in it, a 1960 reissue Les Paul with Alnico pickups, and the Telecaster my wife built with single coil pickups. And they're all similar body construction. So they're all mahogany body. At least two of them have a solid maple cap, and one of them has a maple veneer. So they're all similar body construction with the different pickup types, and I really want to like do a comparison where I look and say, okay, here's what, let's compare the Telecaster to the Prophecy single coil. Let's compare the Modern Active with the setting with the ESP LTD and see how everything just kind of compares and see if we can tell a tonal difference between them and if that is like a true kind of do-it-all guitar. I also have we picked up a Boss Katana. I'm getting a new band together, and so taking the Boss Katana, that's my rehearsal amp, combining that with my HX effects and the Epiphone Prophecy, and maybe doing a live stream where we just check out tones together and just say, like, how flexible is this rig? They both have, USB connectivity where you can like change all the different pedals and settings inside of each one, and I can do some stuff and you can throw some ideas at me. There's that idea. There's also this argument that's come up a lot about where tone comes from in guitar, and like Glenn Fricker and all these other people have chimed in on that. And I noticed something, especially on Glenn's channel, because he's a metal guy and most of his stuff is high gain, he doesn't necessarily see a lot of difference between the different pickup types and all that sort of stuff. And everyone says, yeah, well, you're not doing clean. Well, okay, what if we could do a more empirical test to see like what is the effect gain changes have on frequency response, and have a frequency response chart pulled in, go direct through the Boss Katana or something, or even just straight into the DI and use an amp sim, and take a couple similar or maybe even a couple very, very different guitars and see what the frequency response looks like in clean versus as we start cranking up the gain, and maybe seeing if we can like see a definitive representation of frequency response evening out as you increase the gain, which is logical. It makes sense that would happen. But I don't know that I've seen anyone demonstrate it and actually show like, here's what's happening. It's another idea I have. On top of that, I've got to shoot the video for my Hellraiser cover. The music is already recorded, mixed, mastered, and is set to release next month. So now I've filmed most of the video. I just have to do the guitar parts and then edit it. So that's on the docket. I also have redone Welcome Home. And I have an idea for an actual, like, not just a performance music video, but an actual like storyline music video, kind of taking some inspiration from Silent Hill 2, which is kind of the inspiration for the song, and doing some really cool stuff there. Still have to shoot that. And then there's my whole next album that I am in the process of recording, and that's kind of gotten stalled out too. There's all these projects coming in and that are potential to do, but they have to fit within the confines of what can be done in this room next to the boy, and the boy's schedule, and when he sleeps, when he's awake. If I work really hard, I can keep him on a schedule where I can sneak away to get some stuff done. and then have other times when I have a little bit more free reign to do a little bit more noisy things. So I'm putting all that together. I do plan on creating more content, putting things out there. As I get the next album recorded, I will be shooting music videos. Those will be getting put out. But my priority is the boy. My music is top of the list. My experiments and things where I'm helping people learn and I'm going through the scientific method, that's probably second on the list. Bottom of the list is vloggy stuff like this. But that fills me with a sense of pride in what I'm doing, that if everything else fails, if AudioMutt's never able to recover from this pause in activity, if my content never catches on, if I never make another merch sale, what I have done still has meaning. It is still worthwhile. And it not only contributes to the wider world, but it has something to say for my family right here, and it leaves something behind so that long after I'm gone, my kid, my grandkids, they can get a sense of who I was. That may seem like a strange, maybe even selfish thing, but being in a position where I have lost so many people, and looking at who my kid isn't going to have the opportunity to know. He's not going to have the opportunity to know his cousin Hayden. He's not going to have the opportunity to know his great uncle Gerald or his great aunt Mary. He's not going to have the opportunity to know my mom. And that doesn't mean that the people who are in his life are any less than. But he isn't going to, he's going to miss out on that opportunity to know some pretty fantastic folks. And that experience and that thought for me has put it in my head that doing this is important and worthwhile. So content creation is going to be sporadic. There will be some months that I might get 3 or 4 videos out. There might be other months where I don't get any videos out. There might be months when I only get 1 or 2 out. It's going to be sporadic. I'm going to get these things together as I can. I'm going to keep publishing, not because I have any hopes of commercial success, but this is a one-man shop. I'm doing this all on my own and juggling all of that completely solo. And so I've got to prioritize. Another decision that I've made is watching videos from other content creators who talk about what they do to be a success. Rick Beato and Rhett Shull and Mr. Beast, they all talk about having to switch out thumbnails and spend tons of time finding the right thumbnail to draw in clicks, finding the right title to draw in clicks. And I've realized that that's probably the biggest part of the YouTube game. It's not necessarily the content creation itself. It's doing the different things to draw the viewers to your content. And I've made the decision that I don't necessarily want to play that game. It's not what I'm about. And the result, the likely result is this channel will never be a huge thing. And I've decided I'm okay with that. That I am not trying to be a full-time YouTuber. YouTube is a creative outlet for me. Say the things I want to say. Do the experiments that I wish I was seeing other people do, but they're just not. Or if I have an idea, just doing it and not letting there be an excuse not to. That's what this is for me. That's what this is going to continue to be for me. But I wanted to get this statement out there and explain what this channel really is intended to be now, and that there is currently a pivot that's happening to try to address the needs of my family and the realities of my situation. I will keep making content. It will be sporadic. I am not a full-time YouTuber. I don't intend on being a full-time YouTuber. I'm a musician and audio engineer first, and that's okay. And I think for me, once I embrace that in my heart and stop letting myself stress over, gotta get more content out, gotta get more content out. Nope, I don't have time to work on the new album. I've got to get more content made. And I do the things that I want to do and perform the tests I want to perform when I want to do them, when I'm able to do them, and share it with you when I'm able. That is resulting in me being a much happier person. And I have to learn to let go of feeling that responsibility towards something that is important, but isn't necessarily of an immediate benefit to my family. And once I've realized within myself that that's not my intent and not my desire, then I can truly do really cool things on this platform because I'm not beholden to anyone or anything other than my own zany ideas. And I think that has the potential to be really cool. But it does mean that there's going to be some inconsistencies. Production quality is going to vary, depending on if I can get the DSLR out, or if I just got the boy down for a nap, I have to load up the webcam, or if I happen to be running an errand and have an idea that I want to talk to you guys about, and so I just get my phone out. All that's going to be a factor, and we will see how the wind blows. That's kind of a state of the channel address. We are almost at the 1 year mark, which will be coming up in April next month. So February, we'll have released the music video for my song Testimony. Next month, my goal is to have the Hellraiser video up and out, which was a lot of fun to film. Trimmed out my chops, kind of look similar to Lemmy, not entirely, but got myself a cowboy hat and got to kind of play that role a little bit, which was fun. And then I've got the band coming together, and so we're working on Hellraiser and Welcome Home right now. We are currently looking for another guitarist with vocal ability that can kind of co-front with me. So I'm guitar and vocals. I've got 4 or 5 songs I'm kind of comfortable and relatively confident playing and singing at the same time. So we are looking for someone who can pair up with me and can, where we can kind of bounce off of each other, and I can let loose a solo, and then they can let loose a solo, and I can sing a song and they can sing a song, and where we can just not worry about one person's necessarily the front man, and we're both instrumentalists and singers, and can get really flexible and fun and do different things on stage. That's something that, talking with Crystal and Tabitha, that I thought was really cool and really wanted to try and make happen if we could. So if you are or know of a instrumentalist and singer in the Granbury area, hit me up. We are currently looking, even potentially for a keys player. So that is where we are right now, and just going to keep rocking and rolling. So have patience, have understanding. I'm not going anywhere, but I am slowing down. And that's just out of necessity. But anyway, I appreciate you. I know this was a long one. We will see how this trims down in the edit. But I appreciate you tuning in and hearing what I've got to say, and for your continued support. You are, in fact, incredibly awesome. Keep rocking. Appreciate you. And have a good one.